Hello everybody, it's me. So it's the 5th of November, so if you hear fireworks, that's why. It's the day we celebrate a man get brutally murdered every year, because that's what we British do for some reason. Anyway, unfortunately Guy Fawkes couldn't pick a more convenient time to die because it's absolutely freezing. Why couldn't he die in the summer? But anyway, the reason I'm making this video is I don't believe in free will. I think I might have said something about this in a couple of my videos, but I don't believe in free will at all. I think it's nonsense. And the reason I say that is because everything that we experience has a cause and an effect, and there's no reason to suggest that this is different because we're human. I mean, it's anthropocentrism to say that we have free will just because we're human. And our brains, the more we learn about it, the more we realize just how much, or how little freedom we actually have. And I think I recently watched a video, I think by Noam Chomsky, basically saying that free will is, well, it's just obvious. We don't have proof of it, but it just seems obvious. That's not convincing at all. I can't believe Noam Chomsky actually would say something like that. It's ridiculous. But and I think he also said during this video that I watched, he said something about how there was a study whereby I think it was a computer program could predict a human's reactions, the limbs, before a human being knew that it was going to happen. And he was saying something like, well, that doesn't just prove free will, it just proves that we have a subconscious, and our subconsciousness is very powerful, and that most of our decisions are made by it. And this doesn't really do the argument any favor, really, because you know, take for instance Freudian slips. The reason why we call them Freudian slips is because they're not because they're slips, because we don't feel like we have control over it. And the more we learn about it, the mind, and for instance, things like schizophrenics, they can't control the voices in their head. Some people have multiple voices in their head, multiple thoughts. Does that make them real? It's kind of nonsense. And I think there was take for instance subatomic physics, quantum mechanics rather. It appears to be random. Now, that's not to say that it is random. There could be many physics laws that we don't know of that may explain the appearance of randomness. But if you don't take it such at a micro level and look at it from a more larger level, like for instance, if you take a baseball bat, you can actually predict pretty accurately, almost 100% accurate. In fact, I think you can do it 100% accurate if you have the right technology and you condition the room completely, and you can predict the trajectory. I can't speak today. 100% of the time. So it's not really. It can't be random. It can't be completely random. And even if it was random, randomnivity is not free will. But anyway, the reason I'm making this video is there's a guy who made this comment on one of the videos I made, and he says, "Free will is not a pseudoscience. It is a concept, belief, and mode of consciousness. I have no idea why you'd bring science into this since it cannot determine the intangible." I don't really want to go into a debate about what is pseudoscience, but I'll just continue. "But let's go ahead and take your claim as true, and that free will doesn't exist. Then does that mean all paths in life are linear? Does this mean that someone born and raised in the slums is simply fated to live a terrible life, and shouldn't even be bothered to get out because they know it's hopeless? Does that mean that everyone that's attempting to change anything is pointless because all the paths lead to the same way in a way? Believing free will doesn't exist is a potentially dangerous way of thinking, as it is a much more cynical one. Why bother making a choice when ultimately I'll end up in the same place regardless?" This is a criticism that I hear quite a lot, but it's not actually true, and the reason I'll say this is for a number of reasons. First of all, there's what's known as the butterfly effect, and there are just so many factors. There's just so many factors. You can have genetics, 100% genetics. You can have supposedly the same environment, but I mean, think about it. It's um, it's never the same environment. It's never completely the same environment for identical twins, for instance. There's always many factors, and this is one of my criticisms of Stephen Molyneux. He reduces everything to child abuse, but there could be many things that happen in your childhood that can traumatize you. It could be watching a horror film when you're young and being traumatized by it. Or not even a horror film, it could be just the shadows on the wall that project something very scary and traumatizes you. There's many factors, so that's a non sequitur. But as for being apathetic and, well, nothing, I can't do anything, I can't influence our the way we behave, this is not true, and I kind of understand the logic here, but it's not actually true. And the reason why is because in the past there was what's known as Calvinism, and Calvinism was a form of Protestantism that believed in predestination, that everything we do is going to lead to the exact same goal, and that there was only so many people that are chosen to go to heaven. And you would think, well, if everything is predetermined, then why would these people care? Why would they bother to do any of these things? And but that's not what happened. In fact, it was quite the opposite, because these Calvinists were hard workers. They were. It's where the term Protestant work ethic came from, because being hard working was seen as a virtue, and therefore a sign of being one of these elected people to go to heaven. So many of these Protestants would work harder to see these signs. Now, we live in a more secular society, but the principle still stays the same, and in fact can be very useful. So I'll give you a good example is color psychology. For example, blue light is good for you in the day because it suppresses your melatonin and therefore can keep you awake. Red light at night is good for you, and blue light at night is bad for you for the same reasons. Blue because blue suppresses melatonin, red not so much. So, you know, all these things, like another example, for instance, is I think there was some sort of study that said if there's a tree outside your house, you're less likely to be depressed. Now, all these things are deterministic, but if I read these things and I see these statistics, I might just, like I am right now, I could make all these conditions so that I can get that deterministic effect of improving my life. Now, it's not free will, but it is knowledge, and it may, it could be that the red light isn't doing anything to me. It could be that it's a placebo effect. Well, maybe it is, but the point still stands. Determinism and being conscious of determinism can actually improve your life. It can actually inspire you to find out, well, what are these things that are deterministic that can help me get a better life. And I've only got a couple of minutes left, but another thing is about punishment. Some might say, well, why punish a certain individual if he's committed a crime, if after all there are these deterministic facts? And this one is a very easy thing to refute. The reason why we do that is because we want to send a message to the rest of society. It's not so much a revengeance measure, it's more of a preventative measure. We don't want other people to do the same thing. So the reason why we may execute a prisoner or sentence that person to life is a preventative measure, and it's a form of cohesion of keeping society on the same page, basically. So that's all I've got to say on free will, determinism. Determinism isn't as pessimistic as you'd think.